Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS College Football Week 10. We're on to Saturday. Same as always, going to get to as many as I can. Not going to be able to get to them all. No live show. Scoop couldn't make it and didn't really have the time to pull it off. We'll be doing an NFL live show, but no college football live show. As far as this week, I'm coming into this up about 1.3 units, I think, at the moment. I went 1-1 on Friday night. Lost Rice plus 14, but I got the under in UNC Syracuse. So coming in the green. Hopefully we can hold on to it. A lot of games on the board. Let's do it. I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points? I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. Duke is on the road against Clemson. It's actually Clemson's homecoming here. And Clemson gets another shot, a revenge game for Clemson. If you remember, the last time these two teams played was in week 1, 2023. Duke won 28-7. I believe that was Riley. Yeah, that was Riley Leonard starting at quarterback for Duke. Couple trends here. So Duke has not won a game on the road at Clemson since 1980. Clemson has not lost back-to-back games against Duke since 1969 and 1970. Clemson has also won 13 consecutive homecoming games. And November, that's Dabo Swinney's month. Clemson is 33-6 in the month of November under Dabo. So yeah, a lot of historical trends pointing towards Clemson getting it done here. Obviously, this year's a bit different. This is the best Duke team I've ever seen. As far as the matchup between Clemson's offense and Duke's defense, perfect matchup for Klubnik to return. Now, it's not confirmed that he's going to be back. I'm reading he's listed as probable. He's dealing with an ankle injury, so who knows if he's 100%. The reason I'm saying it's the perfect matchup for him to return, because the glaring weakness of this Duke team is their secondary. They can't seem to cover anybody. That's been going on all season. Now, in terms of Clemson, there's some good news. Cade Klubnik might be back. He's listed as probable. Also, their left tackle, Tristan Lee, finally coming back. He was hurt, then he came back, then he got hurt again. He's going to be back, their left tackle. They did lose one of their receivers, Bryant Wesco Jr. He's out for the season. Also, they're missing their left guard, Colin Sadler. And their right guard, Elijah Thurman, is still out. He's been out for a while, though. That's not new. The Colin Sadler one, the left guard, I believe that's relatively new. On the Duke side, looks like they might be missing a corner. Kamari Robinson, he's trending towards not playing. Remember, this is a Duke defense that's still missing safety Terry Moore, who's been out pretty much the entire year, or I think he has been out the entire year, and linebacker Nick Morris is out for the season as well for this Duke defense. So like I said, if Cade Klubnik is 100%, and we don't know that for a fact, but if he is 100%, he should be able to make throws on this Duke secondary that can't seem to cover anybody. Now, Duke can pressure the quarterback, which is why an ankle injury could be a concern if Klubnik's lacking mobility. But if he's able to deliver throws from the pocket, he should be able to make them. Look at Duke's numbers against the pass in their last 6 games. They're allowing almost 8.9 yards per pass attempt, 46.8% success rate per dropback, over 268 passing yards per game. And they're on the road against Clemson and Antonio Williams and Klubnik. So, like I said, if Klubnik, if his ankle is fine, he's going to make throws on this Duke defense. This is the glaring weakness of the Duke team, is their ability to defend the pass. Duke struggled with explosive plays all year. They're actually 127th in the country in explosive plays allowed. So, yeah, there should be plenty of opportunities for Klubnik to make throws downfield in this one. The main question is on the other side of the ball. Is this Clemson defense capable of stopping the Duke offense? This Duke passing attack is as explosive as any other passing attack in the country. On the season, they're 7th in success rate per dropback, 12th in PPA per dropback. Even in the loss, Mensa was excellent. This is in the loss to Georgia Tech. Threw for 373 yards, a 110.7 NFL passer rating. So Mensa's been great. Even in the loss, he was great. Now, Clemson's defensive line, probably going to be the best Duke has seen all year. Clemson's defensive line is loaded. This is definitely a unit that's capable of pressuring the passer. But Darian Mensa's been a lead against the blitz. He's been a lead under pressure. I mean, I don't think there's any reason to doubt Mensa making throws in this game. I know he's on the road in Death Valley, homecoming, place is going to be rocking, definitely a harsh environment, but Mensa has looked fine in his road conference games. Syracuse and Cal, maybe not comparable to Clemson, but in his 2 road conference games, 124.5 NFL passer rating. So he's been fine. He handled pressure fine in those 2 games. In my opinion, this game should not be above a field goal. It's got to be Duke at plus 3.5. I also like the over. It's at 54.5. This Duke team keeps finding ways to shoot themselves in the foot. But the thing is, they're playing another team that keeps finding ways to shoot themselves in the foot in Clemson. So, I mean, I think this should be 3, maybe even 2.5. So it would be Duke or over. I don't have a bet on this game, though. I don't see any reason to doubt Mensa and the Duke offense from scoring. Klubnik with the limit might be limited on his ankle. Give me Duke plus 3.5 in the over. Penn State, Ohio State, and Columbus. We all know the narrative here. Penn State can't beat Ohio State. I actually believe it's Penn State can't beat Ohio State or Michigan. But we know the narrative. Penn State can't beat Ohio State. It's true. They're 1-8 in their last 9. And in fact, I believe they're like 1-12 in their last 13 or something like that. Something I will point out, though, they may not be able to beat Ohio State, but it's actually been profitable to bet Penn State against Ohio State. They do cover. They're 6-3 against the spread in their last 9 against Ohio State. So let's take a look at this matchup and see if Penn State might be able to keep it within this huge number. It's at 19.5 right now. So let's take a look at this matchup right here. 34-0 victory, Penn State over FIU. You might be thinking, Kyle, why are we taking a look at this game? Well, this is actually Penn State's last FBS win. I know, crazy, early September. This is the last time Penn State won an FBS game. This season has been wild for Penn State. I do have to say, though, when it comes to Penn State, I feel, what's the best way to say this? I feel their struggles are being exaggerated based on the expectations entering the season. We were expecting them to be one of the best teams in the country, a national champion contender, right? Everyone was. That's not just me, not just you. Everyone was. So I think their struggles right now are being exaggerated because we're comparing them to expectations. You would think, if you just listen to the narratives and read Twitter, you would think Penn State is just getting blown out every week. That's not the case at all. I mean, they lost a nail-biter to Oregon. They lost a nail-biter to UCLA. They lost a nail-biter to Northwestern, who, by the way, looks pretty good. They lost a nail-biter to Iowa and Kinnick. Always a tough place to go play. Look, I'm not downplaying the disaster this season has been for Penn State. It's been a disaster. I'm just saying, I think it's being a little bit exaggerated. You would think, based on the way people are talking about Penn State, you would think they're getting beat by 30 points every week. That's not what's happening at all. This team's been very competitive. It's just compared to the expectations we had for them, it's bad. Anyway, are they able to keep it within the number here on the road in Columbus? And obviously, this is a nightmare. Ohio State absolutely loaded on both sides of the ball. Offensively, Penn State 29th in success rate, 46th in PPA per play. Ohio State, once again, just like they were last year, arguably the best defense in the country. We don't want to sleep on this Penn State offense, though. I know the quarterback situation is tough. They still have 2 of the best running backs in the country. They're actually getting their left guard back as well. Ione, I believe is his name. They're supposed to be getting him back on the field. Ohio State should be getting their nickel back, Lorenzo Styles, back as well, though. So I know when most people are looking at this matchup, they're thinking there's no way Penn State can move the football, right? I think that's everyone's first impression. Like, how is Penn State with a backup quarterback, maybe even the 3rd-string quarterback out there, making his second start? It's a freshman on the road in Columbus. How are they going to move the ball against this Ohio State defense? And I hear you. I think there are very valid points. I will say, I don't think Penn State running the football in this game is that wild of a take. First of all, Penn State's been running the ball. In their last 4 games, they've played Oregon. UCLA is a bad defense, but Northwestern's defense has been tough. Iowa's defense in Kinnick, one of the best in the country. And in those last 4 games, they're averaging over 4.2 yards per carry, almost 46% success rate per rush, over 151 rushing yards per game. So Penn State has been running the ball. Now, you might be thinking, well, Kyle, who cares? Ohio State's defense is elite. And I mean, you'd be correct in saying that. Nobody has run the ball in Ohio State, not since week 1. But here's the thing. If you look at Ohio State's defensive game logs, I got to ask, where are the rushing attacks? What run game has Ohio State seen this year? Let's go through their opponents. We're starting from most recent and going backwards. Wisconsin, one of the worst, probably the worst offense in the Big Ten, embarrassing offense. Illinois, passing offense. Minnesota, really bad offense. Washington, passing offense. Ohio Bobcats, MAC team and passing offense. Grambling, that's funny. And then Texas in the opener, that offense has been terrible. By the way, Texas ran the ball on Ohio State. In fact, if you isolate it to just Texas rushing numbers in week 1, it was one of Texas' most efficient games running the football all season. They averaged almost 4.5 yards per carry, 51.4% success rate per rush on the road against Ohio State. Look, I'm not trying to downplay Ohio State's defense or anything like that. I'm just saying they haven't really seen a rushing attack. Texas was able to run the ball in this defense. They've seen a lot of teams that either throw the ball or are bad offenses. Penn State is a great offensive line and arguably 2 NFL running backs. I don't think it's crazy to say Penn State might be able to run the ball in this game. This Ohio State defensive front seven hasn't really been tested by a physical run game yet. Now, when it comes to the Penn State quarterback situation, I think Grunkemeyer, I guess that's how you say his name. He's a freshman. I guess he's making his second career start on the road in Columbus. This is just insane. This Ohio State defense, I mean, this is nuts. Penn State might be able to run the ball, but are they going to score points? Ohio State's allowing 5.9 points per game. That's not a typo. 5.9 points per game, under 3.8 yards per play on the season. This Ohio State defense has been absolutely elite at home in Columbus against a freshman quarterback. I'm certainly not saying Penn State's offense is going to move the ball up and down the field and put a big number on the board. I'm just saying they might be able to run the ball enough to play some field position battle to keep the game from getting ugly. I think Penn State might be able to run the ball a little bit in this game, but as a whole, obviously Penn State is going to struggle to score. Now, on the other side of the ball, this is quite the matchup over here because on one side you've got Ohio State's offense, first in success rate, 7th in PPA per play. Julian Sayin looks excellent. Penn State is still missing their linebacker Tony Rojas. I believe he's out for the year. They are getting an edge rusher back though, Zariah Fisher. Penn State, he should be back for this one. Now the matchup on this side of the ball is actually kind of interesting because on one hand you've got Penn State's defense that's actually looked a little vulnerable to the run in the last few games. So you might think, oh, Ohio State's going to run the ball. But here's the thing. Ohio State really hasn't been consistently running the ball. Look at their Power 4 games so far this year. That's Texas, Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin. In those 5 games, Ohio State's averaging 3.55 yards per carry as a team. 42.4% success rate per rush. This is still Penn State's defense. It has NFL players on it. So I'm not sure if we can count on Ohio State to run the ball in this game. And Penn State can still pressure the quarterback. They still have NFL players pressuring the quarterback. They're 17th in pressure rate, and they do it without sending extra rushers. Now, Julian Sayin has been arguably a top 3 quarterback in the country. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country when it comes to handling pressure. So by no means am I saying, Julian Sayin can't handle Penn State. Like, he's been great, but this Penn State defense hasn't really been thrown on. Look at their last 4 games. They're allowing less than 6 yards per pass at them. Now, Oregon, that's the only one that's respectable on there. UCLA running offense. Northwestern has Preston Stone. Iowa rushing offense. So none of these offenses, with the exception of Oregon, are comparable to Ohio State. But I'm saying Ohio State might not be able to run the ball. Penn State should be able to generate pressure on Sayin. I don't think it's crazy that Penn State can at least make Ohio State work for points in this one. And when it comes to explosive plays, I don't think we're going to see many on either side of the ball. Check this out. Both these defenses, Ohio State is first in explosive play rate allowed. Penn State's offense 122nd. So I think we can all agree we're probably not going to see many big offensive plays out of Penn State. But on the other side of the ball, Ohio State's offense 130th in explosive play rate. Penn State's defense 16th. So I don't think we're going to see huge plays on either side here. I think Penn State's able to run the ball enough to keep this from getting ugly. I think we're going to see a slow-paced game. I'm kind of considering under here, 44.5, and call me crazy. I'm looking at plus 19.5. I think this is an ugly one. 27-14, the final score. Ohio State wins comfortably, but it's not a complete blowout. Stays under the total. Penn State covers. Army, Air Force, this one's in Colorado Springs. So historically, Air Force has dominated Army, but not so much in recent years. Air Force is actually just 2-6 straight up, 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 games against Army. Now, I'm pretty sure only 1 or 2 of those were actually in Colorado Springs, though. They played some neutral sites and games in there. So there's not a ton of home games against Army. And historically, Army has not played well at all when they've gone to Colorado Springs. But anyway, 2-6 in their last 8 matchups against Army. So can Air Force grab themselves a win in this one? Well, we Well, we know defensively Air Force has not been very good so far this year. In fact, on paper, they're one of the worst defenses in the FBS, certainly the worst pass defense in the FBS. They're 133rd in success rate, 136th, dead last in PPA per play. The good news for Air Force, and we haven't had much good news for Air Force defensively this year, but the good news is their glaring weakness, like I said, is defending the pass. On paper, Air Force is the worst pass defense in the FBS so far this year, dead last in success rate per dropback and PPA per dropback. But they're playing Army. In case you've never watched Army play football before, they don't throw the ball. They're actually first in the country in rushing frequency. No team in the FBS runs the ball more frequently than Army this season. Army might be missing their main running back, too, Hayden Reed. He didn't play in the Tulane game, and he wasn't even on the injury report. It was a late scratch. And as of right now, it's not confirmed if he's going to be playing in this game against Air Force. So, look, this Air Force defense isn't good at all, but against a team that basically only runs the ball, they might have an actual opportunity to play a decent defensive game here. Army's offense certainly hasn't looked very strong. In their last 4 games, sure, ECU's a tough defense, Tulane's a tough defense, but UAB, it's one of the worst defenses in the country, and Charlotte, in their last 4 games, under 20 points per game, under 4.8 yards per play. And certainly when we're looking at their passing numbers, they're averaging 68 passing yards per game. So again, you know Army doesn't throw the ball much, so this is not a passing threat. Maybe Air Force can play a decent defensive game here. And what's one thing Air Force has really struggled with defensively this year? Explosive plays. They're dead last in explosive play rate allowed this year, Air Force is. Army doesn't produce any. They're 126 in explosive play rate. So again, maybe Air Force can play some defense finally in this one. And then when we get to the other side of the ball, the Air Force offense is obviously the best unit in this game on paper so far this year. Air Force offensively 9th in success rate, 5th in PPA per play. Army's defense certainly hasn't been very good, 113th in success rate, 104th in PPA per play. But like the Air Force defense, Army's secondary has been the vulnerable part of the just like Air Force, they struggle against the pass, and just like Army, Air Force doesn't throw the ball much. They throw the ball a lot more than Army does, but this is still Army's first in rushing frequency, Air Force is third. So maybe Air Force is a bit more equipped to exploit a bad secondary, but neither of these teams throw the ball much at all. But this Army defense, their last 3 road games, they went to ECU, UAB, Tulane. In those 3 games, they may have only allowed 21.7 points per game, but 49.3% success rate, 6.3 yards per play. This Army defense has just really struggled to get off the field, and that's exactly what Air Force does. Stays on the field, moves the chains. In their last 5 games, they're averaging 35 points per game, 49.9% success rate, over 7.3 yards per play. Now, the way Army plays, Army's going to try to drag Air Force into the traditional service academy game. Army wants this game to be as slow as possible, while Air Force wants to play more of a shootout. So we're probably not going to see the normal high-scoring games we've seen from Air Force. It feels like Air Force is in a shootout every single week. We're not going to see that here because Army's going to do whatever they can to slow this game down. So as far as betting it, I definitely don't hate an under at 49.5. 2 slow-paced teams. The clock should basically never stop in this game. But I actually did place a bet on the game. I took Air Force moneyline at -108. I truly feel that Air Force is the better team here. So to get them at home at -108 felt like a good bet. Army may have had some success against Air Force in recent years, but historically, their I don't have it in front of me, but their record in Colorado Springs is not good. Pretty sure they've only won 1 or 2 games ever in Colorado Springs. So -108 money line, I thought Air Force was a good bet. I'm on Air Force here. UCF's on the road at Baylor. You look at the season-long numbers on this side of the ball. I'm talking about UCF's offense against Baylor's defense. You look at the year-long numbers. You might think, oh, Baylor might be able to make some stops here. UCF might struggle to move the ball. You got to keep in mind that UCF played 2 of their games with a backup and even a third-string quarterback. If you isolate UCF's offensive numbers to just the games that Taven Jackson played in, you can see there's a clear difference here. In the games that Taven Jackson played, that's 5 of them, they're averaging 36.8 points per game, over 7.1 yards per play. This offense has looked significantly better when Taven Jackson is in at quarterback. And then you look at the 2 games where he didn't play. The one of them he started, but he got injured early and he was playing with a shoulder injury. 15.5 points per game, 4.75 yards per play. So when you look at UCF's season-long offensive numbers, they're a bit skewed by those 2 games where they didn't have their quarterback. We saw Taven Jackson return from injury in their last game against West Virginia. The offense picked up right where it left off. They won 45-13. Not only is he back, but he also had a bye week to heal up, so he should be even healthier than he was in week 8 when he returned from injury. And some more good news for UCF on the injury front. They're starting left tackle, or he might be the right tackle, actually. They're starting offensive tackle. I'm not sure which side. His name's Paul Rubelt. It's one of the better offensive linemen that they have. He might be back from injury as well. So, yeah, good news on the injury front for UCF's offense. In this Baylor defense, I will say I will say it's probably not as bad as perceived. Whenever we talk about Baylor, we talk about how terrible their defense is, and it's not good. But, I mean, look at their last 3 games, 5.89 yards per play, 47.2% success rate. Got to keep in mind, not only did they play fast-paced football games, they played Kansas State, TCU, Cincinnati. They have seen some tough offenses, and we've seen Baylor. I mean, they played well in the Arizona State game. I don't think Baylor's defense is quite as bad as perceived. One thing Baylor's actually done a really good job of this year is limiting big plays, as surprising as that may be to hear. They're actually 8th in the country in explosive play rate allowed, and UCF offensively is actually 1st in the country in explosive play rate. So Baylor might be able to limit some of those big plays from UCF, but they create no havoc, 122nd. They don't get in the backfield. They don't disrupt plays. So UCF's offense, maybe the big plays aren't there, but they should be able to operate pretty freely and move the chains in this one. On the other side of the ball, this is where the matchup gets interesting. So you look at this graphic right here. It looks like UCF's been playing lights out defensively. 34th in success rate, 25th in PPA per play. And you look at these numbers and you might think, oh, UCF can go on the road in Baylor and make stops here. Baylor is going to be missing a wide receiver, by the way, Kobe Prentice. I believe he's listed as doubtful. He leads the team with 6 touchdown catches. So Baylor, all right, maybe UCF's defense can go on the road and make some stops here. I'm not so sure about that. You look at UCF's defensive game logs on the year. What offenses have they seen? Jacksonville State in the opener was a brand new Jacksonville State team with a new coach, new roster, then an FCS opponent, then North Carolina, one of the worst Power 4 offenses. Then they played Kansas State, Kansas, Cincinnati. Okay, there's 3 respectable offenses. And then they played West Virginia at home. Terrible offense. If you isolate UCF's defensive numbers to just those 3 games, the Kansas State game, the Kansas game, and the Cincinnati game, the defensive numbers don't look nearly as good. They're allowing 6.4 yards per play, 44.1% success rate. Not that it's terrible, but you look at the UCF defensive numbers on the full season, in my opinion, it's a little bit misleading. They're a little padded because when they've played bad offenses, they've racked up some elite-looking defensive stats. 9.8 points per game, under 3.6 yards per play. But every single time they saw a decent offense, they did struggle to make stops. And Baylor's offense is definitely better than decent. I mean, this is a very explosive offense. They're at home. They're coming off back-to-back losses. You would think Aranda's probably coaching for his job at this point. I would imagine Baylor's offense cooks them up here. I think Baylor's offense will be just fine. I don't really care how green the graphic is for UCF's year-long defensive numbers. We should see a fast-paced football game with a lot of throwing. I want to bet an over in this game. I think everything points towards a shootout. The reason I'm hesitant on pulling a trigger on the over, supposed to be a little bit of a windy day, and these are 2 teams that I would imagine are going to be throwing the ball. Definitely don't like that. And both defenses weirdly have great numbers limiting big plays. And both offenses are kind of relying on big plays. So I think the offenses are going to move the ball, but we might see some long sustained drives. And with the win, maybe some missed field goals. Just doesn't exactly point towards an over. So even though I do think both offenses are going to move the ball freely in this game, I can't pull the trigger on a big number like 59.5 or 60.5. I think at the current number, I would lean towards the UCF side at plus 3.5. Baylor's going to score, but I just don't trust the defense enough to lay more than a field goal in any game. And I think UCF's a little bit undervalued now that their quarterback is healthy. So I think this is a back and forth game. Comes down to the last possession. I'll take UCF plus 3.5, but I didn't bet this one. Miami's on the road at SMU. I'm not sure if Miami fans necessarily got the bounce back performance they were looking for last week against Stanford. I mean, yeah, the final score looks good, 42-7. It was 7-7 at halftime. Home game against Stanford. I mean, in the second half, they dominated, and the box score looks fine. It's probably nothing to worry about. But coming off the loss to Louisville, I think Miami would have preferred to just see a start-to-finish blowout. It's not really what we saw. Stanford's defense was actually giving some problems early in the game, and they really need to get it together because this SMU defensive front, it's so impressive. This SMU defensive front was elite last year. They lost pretty much all their starters on the defensive line. So I actually thought SMU was going to be vulnerable to the run this year. I couldn't have been more wrong about that. I mean, they're 14th in success rate per rush, 4th in PPA per rush. This is a very strong run defense. And Miami's offense, they can definitely run the ball, but it's not exactly explosive. I mean, 3.81 yards per carry in their last 4 games. Now, 46.4% success rate per rush is good. They're efficient. They can run the ball, but it hasn't exactly been an explosive rushing attack. And the way SMU's been defending the run, Carson Beck really might not have run support in this game. Now, the good news for Carson Beck, well, first of all, I want to say I don't like how they've only played 1 road game all year. But, I mean, Carson Beck is not a freshman, so he's played in plenty of tough road games in his career, so I'm not too worried about that. I just don't like how they've only played 1 road game all season, but I don't like how they're not going to have run support. Either way, it should be a favorable matchup for Carson Beck throwing the ball, because even though SMU's defensive numbers against the pass on the year look pretty good, if you actually isolate it, they haven't seen a ton of good passing offenses. And if you just look at the 3 games where they actually saw an offense that can throw the ball, the numbers don't look good at all. Against Baylor, TCU, and Clemson, and Klubnik didn't even play, by the way, in the Clemson game. It was the backup quarterback. But in those 3 games, they allowed more than 378 passing yards per game, 8.6 yards per pass attempt, 46.5% success rate per dropback. So SMU's defensive numbers against the pass on the year look pretty good, but every single time they saw a capable passing attack, they did struggle to make stops. They're still going to be missing their corner, Jalen Davis Robinson. He's going to miss another game. I believe he's been out 3 games now. They also might be missing an edge rusher, Cameron Robertson. He's listed as questionable. He's got 5 sacks. He missed last game against Wake Forest. So in addition to having some problems against the pass, they also have a couple injuries. So the table's set. It should be a favorable matchup for Carson Beck to make throws. The question comes on the other side of the ball. How healthy is Kevin Jennings right now? We've seen him limping in several games so far this year, and there's constant talk of him playing through an injury. They're also dealing with other injuries on this side of the ball. Well, first of all, the good news. Their main wide receiver, Romello Brinson, he's listed as probable. So I think they're getting their main wide receiver back, which is obviously great news. But now their second wide receiver, Jordan Hudson, he's on the injury report and listed as questionable. He was injured early in the season, then he came back. Now it's looking like he might not play in this game. Their RB2, though, Chris Johnson Jr., he's listed as probable, so he's probably going to play. He's playing against his old team. He transferred from Miami before this season. So there's some injury concerns in terms of weapons for the SMU offense, and Miami's getting their edge rusher back. Messidor, he's set to return. He leads the team in sacks. He's got 26.5 career sacks, which is the second most of any edge rusher in the entire country. So in addition to some injury concerns for SMU's offense, Miami's defense has been lights out, and they're getting a key player back. So yeah, not the greatest looking matchup here for SMU's offense. That being said, if I was to pick one player, or maybe not one player, but one of the top picks, if you're trying to pick one quarterback that's equipped to deal with this Miami defense, a healthy Kevin Jennings might be your pick. This Miami pass rush, they blitz a lot. They generate a lot of pressure. Well, Kevin Jennings, elite against the blitz, elite against pressure. We saw him piece Clemson apart in that ACC championship game last year. So, I mean, if Kevin Jennings' ankle is fine, I think it's an ankle injury. If his ankle is fine, he's the guy you want against a pass rush like this. It's tough to call because SMU's offense is explosive, and I do think at home they can score on anybody, but this Miami defense is so strong. I think because of last year with the Cam Ward team and the defense kind of struggled, but Miami's offense put up 60 points a game. I think because that's what Miami was built like last year, that we kind of have a false view of what this Miami team is. Last year, they were an explosive offense with Cam Ward, big name quarterback. This year, they have another big name quarterback, but this is a defensive team. Miami's defense is elite. The offense has actually sputtered at times. So the way I look at it is I see 2 paths to a possible SMU cover here. Path number 1 is Carson Beck. Like I said before, I don't think he's going to have run support. He should have opportunities to make throws. We've seen SMU secondary get thrown on. So he should have opportunities to make throws here, but we're talking about a road game. They've only played one road game all year, and we're talking about a game where he might not have run support, or Carson Beck has to win it by making throws. Let's not pretend like we've never seen Carson Beck throw terrible interceptions before. We certainly have. When they put a lot of pressure on his shoulders, we've seen him throw bad interceptions. So that's path number one. Carson Beck throws a couple of dumb interceptions, which is possible. Path number two, Kevin Jennings goes full hero mode, which we've seen. That ACC championship game, man. Clemson was up 24-7 at halftime and getting the ball in the third quarter. Kevin Jennings, against that elite Clemson pass rush, marched up and down the field 4 times to tie the game in the ACC championship when the lights were the brightest, biggest game of the year. So he's fully capable of going hero mode here. The ankle injury is a concern. We've seen him limping at times. To me, there's 2 different paths for me to get to this cover. It would only be SMU plus 10.5 here. I don't have a bet on it, but I'm actually considering it. I think SMU can play him tough. Navy, North Texas in what is a huge game. So this screenshot was obviously taken before Tulane just lost to UTSA. Man, if North Texas wins this game, and they are favored to do so, they're actually 6.5-point favorites. They're considerable favorites. If North Texas wins this game, the AAC, or the American Conference, really shaken up. That would put, 7 teams with 1 loss? This would be quite the circus of a finish here in what has become one of the most, if not the most exciting Group of 5 conference in college football so far this year. So let's get into the matchup. I do have a bet on this game. Points. As far as the Navy offense, we know what we're going to get here. They run the ball a lot. They're very explosive. This is not like Army. This is an explosive offense. It was explosive last year. Seems to be even more explosive this year. They're actually 4th in the country in success rate, 3rd in PPA per play. On paper, this has been the most efficient rushing attack in the FBS, 1st in success rate per rush, 1st in PPA per rush. This is a North Texas defense that has struggled against the run. We saw what an option offense did to this North Texas defense back in week 4. North Texas actually jumped out to an early lead, but Army in the second half, North Texas could not get off the field. Army had 387 yards rushing in the game. 387 yards, over 57% success rate per rush. And this North Texas defense got off to such a strong start in the beginning of the season, and we were all talking about the new defensive coordinator, Skylar Cassidy. We were like, this is a new era of North Texas. This defense is so much better than last year's, and it is better than last year's. We are seeing it come back down to earth, though. In their last 3 games, they're allowing over 33 points per game, over 6.3 yards per play, success rate over 46%. If it was just UTSA, just South Florida, maybe, but we saw Charlotte moving the ball in this North Texas defense. So given the fact that North Texas has struggled against the run, and given the fact that Navy has the most efficient rushing attack in college football, they're explosive. I don't see how North Texas makes stops in this game. And on the other side of the ball, same exact story for the North Texas offense against Navy's defense. What does Navy struggle with? The pass. Their secondary can't seem to cover anybody this year. Coming into the season, this was going to be the weakness of this Navy team. We were concerned about the secondary, and that's basically what we've seen so far from them this year. This North Texas offense is electric, which is not new. They're electric every single year. But in the last 2 games, they're averaging over 54 points per game, over 8.4 yards per play. We just saw Drew Mestemaker throw for 608 yards. 608 yards against Charlotte, and the way this Navy secondary has struggled in coverage, he might throw for another 600 in this one. In their last 3 games, Navy's allowing 325 passing yards per game, over 9.6 yards per pass attempt. That's against Air Force rushing offense, Temple rushing offense, and then FAU is a passing offense, not nearly as good as North Texas. So yeah, this should be a shootout, back and forth, points all day. I believe I said this 2 weeks ago, and I'm sticking to it. I said we might have to blindly bet overs every time Navy plays a team that throws the ball. And last week they played Florida Atlantic, a team that throws the ball. I took the over. There were over 70 points scored in the game. I think we're going to see over 70 points in this one. So I did bet this one. I'm on over 65.5. I kind of lean towards Navy at the big number. I mean, Navy's won 10 consecutive football games, so I'm not exactly thrilled with laying 6.5 points to a team like that, especially if I don't trust North Texas to make stops. So I think I would slightly lean towards Navy on the side, but give me the over. West Virginia's on the road against Houston. Houston's doing a blackout here to honor Kurt Hester, who's their strength and conditioning coach who passed away last week to cancer. So they're doing something at the stadium to honor him. We got West Virginia coming in for this one. Let's talk about the West Virginia offense trying to move the ball against Houston's defense. Obviously, you take a look at the year-long numbers. This should be a struggle for West Virginia to move the chains and get points on the board in this one. West Virginia's offense 112th in success rate, 117th in PPA per play. Houston's defense has been pretty solid all year. We do have to give West Virginia a little bit of credit, though. I mean, they were just in a battle against TCU last week. 23-17 was the final score, and I know 17 points. That's not exactly an impressive number on the scoreboard for West Virginia, but the thing to take away from it was, did West Virginia finally find themselves a quarterback? Remember, Nico got hurt earlier in the year, so they've been rotating quarterbacks. They've had 4 different quarterbacks play this season, and freshman Scotty Fox, 301 yards, a 105.8 NFL passer rating, handled pressure well. I mean, West Virginia went down 10-0 in the game. They turned the ball over on downs in the second quarter, gave the ball back to TCU down 10-0, and everybody in the world was like, okay, West Virginia's about to get blown out again. Nah, I mean, Fox started connecting on some throws. I know this stat line doesn't look like the most amazing game in the world, but you got to keep in mind, West Virginia hasn't had a successful game throwing the football all year. So this is the best quarterback performance we've seen from West Virginia this year. So there is reason to be optimistic about West Virginia's offense and Houston's defense. It's been strong this year, but if you look at the last 4 games, it's not like they've been absolutely shut down, lights out. I mean, they're allowing over 5.9 yards per play, over 42% success rate. Teams have been able to move the ball on this Houston defense. Now, I don't think we can count on West Virginia scoring 35 points in the game. That would just be crazy. This West Virginia offense has been very bad in their last 4 games. They're averaging just 4.3 yards per play, just over 35% success rate, just 17 points per game. I mean, this West Virginia offense has been pretty terrible for most of the year, and they're so injured. The top 2 running backs are hurt. The top 2 or 3 quarterbacks are hurt. They've got a wide receiver out. So they've just been so injured. But if they finally have a quarterback they're confident in, keep in mind it is Rich Rodriguez calling the plays, and it wouldn't be the craziest thing if West Virginia's offense actually looks better down the stretch. So I actually think West Virginia can move the ball a little bit in this game. It's on the other side of the ball. This is where the matchup gets interesting. This has been the strength of West Virginia's team so far this year. And if you look at this graphic, you might think, hey, West Virginia can go on the road and make stops against this Houston offense. I mean, Houston is going to be missing their left guard, it looks like. Jason Brooks Jr., he's listed as doubtful. They're also missing their wide receiver, Steph Johnson. He's out for the year. Looks like they're getting an RB back, though. Stacy Sneed, he might be back. He's listed as questionable. But anyway, you look at this graphic and you might think, oh, West Virginia can make stops in this game. But here's the thing. Connor Wegman has been dealing. Remember, this is a highly touted Texas A&M recruit. Jimbo Fisher loved this guy, had some injury problems, kind of a disappointing career so far. He's playing the best football of his career right now. Look at the last 3 games. Over 125 NFL passer rating, handling pressure well. He's been efficient, making good decisions. He's been accurate. So this Houston offense, you look at the year-long numbers, it doesn't look good, and it was ugly for most of the year. But Houston's offense seems to be coming around. And look, West Virginia did play a good defensive game last week. They held Josh Hoover in check. We know that TCU offense is strong. Let's give West Virginia some credit. But that game was at home in Morgantown, and West Virginia's defense has been pretty tough at home all year. They've actually gotten lit up a few times on the road. So I think Houston's going to score points on West Virginia. I actually think Rich Rodriguez is able to move the chains and put some points back on the board the other way. Kind of like an over here. We should see a decent pace. West Virginia, one of the fastest paced teams in the country. Houston, not exactly a slow paced team. I think this game gets over. Problem is 48.5 is a big number for West Virginia's offense. I mean, this team does not score a lot of points. So I like over 48.5, but I can't get. I'm expecting Houston to carry most of the weight. So I like Houston to score a lot of points. So Houston minus the 13, over 48.5 for this one. Vanderbilt Texas, big SEC game here. As I'm sure you've heard, the Sark to the Tennessee Titans. Turns out it's just a rumor. Diana Rossini on Twitter. I'm sure if you have a Twitter account, I'm sure you saw it. Sark was not happy about it. Sark's team released a whole statement about it. But anyway, let's get into the game. This Texas team has somehow won 3 games in a row. Now, it hasn't exactly looked pretty, But 3 wins is 3 wins. Now, the Oklahoma game was an impressive win, but to be honest, they probably should have lost the Kentucky game and the Mississippi State game. If it wasn't for their punt returner, they would have lost both those games. The punt returner saved them. That guy Niblett is awesome. But yeah, Texas has won 3 games in a row. It's looked pretty ugly, but they've won 3 games in a row. This is a huge matchup. You have to think the way the SEC is shaping up, loser of this game is not going to play in the SEC championship. I doubt you're going to play in the SEC championship with 2 conference losses. So loser of this game, not playing in the SEC championship. Vanderbilt going on the road to Texas. They have not played a game on the road to Texas since 1903. 1903 is the last time Vanderbilt played a football game in this building. They did play last year, which I believe was the first time they've played since 1903. Don't fact check me on that. That might be wrong. But they did play last year. Texas squeaked out a win in Vanderbilt. It was a close one. So Pavia's revenge tour, he's hoping to continue it here against this Texas team, this time on the road. We know the battle that we're all looking at is right here. Vanderbilt's efficient offense, one of the most efficient offenses in the entire country, against a very, very strong Texas defense. On the season, Vanderbilt's 8th in success rate, 4th in PPA per play. The Texas defense, 24th and 13th. Now, we did see Vanderbilt's offense get stifled a little bit last week against a very strong Missouri defense. Vanderbilt's offense was held to 17 points, just 22% success rate. This is the worst offensive game that Vanderbilt's played all year. And look, this Texas defense is strong, and I'm assuming that's what some of these sharper bettors that are betting this Texas number up, I'm assuming that's what they're looking at, that one data point for Vanderbilt's offense. Here's the thing. I'm going to repeat what I said last week about Texas defense. Yes, they've been elite. Where has this defense been tested? I mean, week 1 on the road in Columbus. Obviously, that's a great test, and they deserve credit for that one. The defense played great. It was Julian Sain's first career start, so they played a quarterback making his first career start. Okay, but still, good data point there. After that, who's the strongest offense that Texas has seen? I mean, Florida, Oklahoma with Mateer 16 and 17 days after surgery, Kentucky. They played some really bad offenses, and sure, they've racked up some elite-looking defensive numbers, but this defense hasn't really been tested much, and they just lost arguably their best defensive player, Michael Taffy, I believe is how you say his name. He's the safety, the leading tackler. I believe he's the captain. They just lost him last week. They went on the road to Starkville, which was arguably the defense's second biggest test of the year after Ohio State. Blake Shapen threw for 381 yards in the game. Over 123 NFL passer rating, handled pressure well, was delivering from a clean pocket. So this Texas defense, the first time we've seen them tested in 2 months, they got pieced up, missing one of their most important players, who, by the way, is still out. He will not be back for this one. I know Vanderbilt's offense looked a little bit shaky last week against Missouri, and we don't want to just sweep that under the rug, but I mean, we also saw that same Vanderbilt offense go on the road to Tuscaloosa and average 6.3 yards per play, over 46% success rate. Remember, Vanderbilt kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple times in that game. The 14-point final score is a little bit misleading. Vandy was moving the chains in that one. So Vanderbilt's able to go on the road to Alabama and move the chains. I definitely think they're able to move the chains in this one. And look, on the other side of the ball, Texas is coming off their best offensive game of the year. They put up 45 points. Obviously, overtime was involved. 5.4 yards per play, 41% success rate. I mean, those are okay offensive numbers against a Mississippi State defense that isn't very good. They did make a change. Sark put his quarterback coach / co-offensive coordinator, A.J. Milwee, up in the press box to give him an extra set of eyes up there that he trusts. Apparently that helped. I don't know. I'm just reading what the writer said. I don't know. So apparently he put his quarterback coach and co-OC up in the press box instead of the sidelines, and apparently that helped. I don't know. I didn't write that. I read it in an article. Anyway, do we think the Texas offense can move the ball on Vanderbilt's defense? And honestly, I don't think this Texas offense is very good, and I think we have a lot of evidence supporting that claim on the season. Now, Texas offense, they've been through the ringer. They haven't played a lot of good offenses. They have played some good defenses. But still, they're 107th in success rate, 84th in PPA per play. I don't think we know whether or not Arch Manning is going to play. We do know that center Cole Hudson is most likely going to miss another game. I think this will be the third or fourth straight game that he's missed. They did get their left guard back, though, last week, Connor Stroh. He came back for the Mississippi State game. So we don't know who's playing quarterback. If it's not going to be Arch Manning, it's going to be Matthew Caldwell. He actually came in and threw the game-winning touchdown pass in the Mississippi State game. Apparently, Sark is speaking very highly of him. I don't know much about it. He was the backup last year at Troy. If you remember when Goose Crowder got hurt, he came in and started, I want to say 6 or 7 games, had turnover problems, 8 interceptions and fumbled 7 times last year. And he only started like 7 games. So turnovers were a problem for Caldwell. He is experienced. It's not like they're throwing a freshman in there if it is going to be Caldwell. I'm not sure how much of a downgrade it is. It's not like Arch Manning's been lighting it up, giving us a ton of production from the quarterback position. The thing is, with Arch Manning, he hasn't been good, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat it or give him excuses or anything like that. But the thing with Arch Manning is he's been under a ton. He's one of the most pressured quarterbacks in college football so far this year. In his SEC games, Arch Manning was pressured on over 47% of his dropbacks. 47%. So, look, Arch Manning hasn't played well this year, but you throw Matthew Caldwell in there, who had turnover problems at Troy, and he gets pressured on 45-50% of his dropbacks. I would imagine he's not going to do much better than Arch Manning did. So maybe it's not that much of a downgrade, but it's certainly not an upgrade either. This Vanderbilt defense is not elite, but they have done a solid job generating pressure. They send some blitzes. They do pressure the quarterback. Hopefully their edge rusher, Corday Snyder, can play in this game. He's listed as questionable. He left the Missouri game injured, so that would be huge for Texas if Vanderbilt's missing an edge rusher, especially considering protecting the quarterback has been a big problem for the Longhorn offense. But despite all that, can we really trust Texas to move the ball here, even if that edge rusher is out? I mean, can we trust Texas to run the ball? In their SEC games, they're averaging 2.62 yards per carry. 2.62. 77 rushing yards per game. Now, they did play Florida, Oklahoma, some really good defenses. Kentucky's defensive front is kind of strong. They also played Mississippi State. So Texas doesn't have much of a run game. We haven't seen the explosive plays that we were seeing last year. The offensive line is not playing well. This Texas offense just isn't very good based on what we've seen so far this year. So how do you not play Vandy? It looks like it's still at 3. I don't know how it's at 3. I think this one should be a pick, honestly. Vanderbilt +3. I did bet Vanderbilt. I got a worse number though. I think Vanderbilt is live to win the game. Obviously, I think most of you would agree. Next, Louisville, Virginia Tech. So Louisville looks great. They're playing well. The defense, man. Louisville's defense, they might even be better than Miami's defense. This might be the best defense in the ACC. So props to Louisville. They're playing great football. But the way the ACC is shaping up, I mean, Louisville might need to win out to have a chance of playing in the ACC championship game. They're 3-1 in conference. They're probably going to need to be 7-1 if they want to play in that game. I mean, Georgia Tech's sitting at 5-0. They have a pretty easy remaining conference schedule. So it looks like Georgia Tech's about to go 8-0 in conference. So if Louisville wants a shot at playing in that game, they got to win out. So they cannot afford to take their foot off the gas here. Trying to get a feel for the matchup on this side of the ball is tough. And if you're listening, the side I'm talking about is Louisville's offense against Virginia Tech's defense. Louisville's offense, if you look at the final scores of the games, you would think Louisville's playing great offense, and they're really not. They haven't been very efficient. They're 68th in success rate, 95th in PPA per play. If you look at their last 4 games, they are averaging 30.8 points per game, but 40.3% success rate isn't good. PPA numbers don't look good. Remember, Pittsburgh threw them 5 interceptions. So these numbers indicate that the 30.8 points per game might be a little bit due to turnovers, field position. This is showing us that Louisville's offense hasn't been nearly as efficient as the final scores show. And this Virginia Tech defense, I think it might be slightly better than their full season numbers show. They got absolutely lit up in 3 games. The Vanderbilt game, the Georgia Tech game, and I forget what the other one was. But if you take a look at Virginia Tech's last 4 games, they got smoked by Georgia Tech. 35 points, over 7.4 yards per play, 59.1% success rate, smoked on the road against Georgia Tech. But if you look at the 3 games surrounding that one, Virginia Tech actually played some stout defense, under 4.8 yards per play, 38.6% success rate. I personally think Virginia Tech can play some good defense in this one. I don't believe Louisville's offense is very good. Virginia Tech is missing their safety, Quentin Reddish, but that's not new. He's been out since week 3. So I actually think Virginia Tech can play some defense in this one. It's the other side of the ball. This is where the matchup swings heavily towards the Louisville side. This defense is official. 9th in success rate, 15th in PPA per play. Virginia Tech's offense hasn't been so bad. They've actually been running the football a little bit last few games, but this Louisville defense, I mean, this is one of the best pass rushers in the country. They're 4th in pressure rate. Kyron Jones has struggled under pressure so far this year. He also has a tendency to hold on to the football. This is a really tough matchup for Kyron Jones dropping back to pass, and they have been running the ball, but this Louisville defense has been rock solid. In their last 4 games, they're allowing 25.5 points per game, 33.4% success rate, under 5 yards per play. And look at the opponents. Pitt's offense has been good. Virginia's offense has been good. Miami, Boston College offense has actually been all right. So they've actually played some solid opponents, and they're still putting up lights-out defensive numbers. And like I said, Virginia Tech can run the ball. It looks pretty good. Almost 6 yards per carry, 47% success rate per rush in their last 4 games. So I don't want to just sweep that under the rug. They did play NC State. Georgia Tech's strength is definitely not their defensive front. Cal's okay. Wake's got a strong defensive front. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball against this Louisville defense because no one's been able to run the ball on this defense. I know we've seen some high-scoring games from these two teams, but I think we're going to see both defenses play well. I don't think we'll see a crazy fast pace either. These two teams, 76th and 62nd. I think 54.5 is a bit high. I would have this one closer to 51.5. So the way to go in this one is under, in my opinion. I kind of think Virginia Tech can cover the 10.5, but I don't trust Drones at all against this pass rush. So yeah, I kind of think Virginia Tech keeps it within 10.5, but my pick for this game is the under. New Mexico UNLV in Las Vegas. UNLV coming off quite the beatdown. It was actually competitive in the first half, and Boise really ran away with it in the second half. The final score was 56-31 in what was a huge revenge game for UNLV. Remember, Boise beat them twice last year, once in the regular season and then again in the Mountain West Championship game. So this is a huge one for UNLV, and Boise really ran them out of the building in the second half. New Mexico, on the other hand, is coming off back-to-back wins. Now, the nail-biter against Nevada, that's not very impressive. In fact, that's a little bit worrisome. But last week, huge win over a very strong Utah State team. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead and held on to it the whole way. Utah State had looked pretty good. So New Mexico coming off a huge win, UNLV coming off a huge loss. Now, in terms of this matchup, I mean, UNLV's defense just isn't very good. They're 127th in success rate, 123rd in PPA per play. New Mexico is probably still going to be missing their team captain and right guard, Richard Pierce. Not sure if it matters. I mean, New Mexico's offense isn't anything special. It's looked all right. The quarterback, Jack Lane, can definitely throw the ball. But this UNLV defense has just been so bad that I just don't think it's responsible to expect UNLV to generate stops. I mean, they have played a couple good defensive games this year. The Sam Houston State game. Also, they played good defense in the Wyoming game. But outside of those two, this defense has been pretty consistently bad. And like I said, New Mexico's offense isn't anything special. They've had their ups and downs this year, but they're coming off a really strong offensive game, 50% success rate, over 6.3 yards per play against Utah State, which is a questionable defense. Utah State has struggled on the defensive side of the ball, but compared to UNLV, I mean, UNLV can't seem to stop anybody. So yeah, I think even without their right guard, New Mexico should be able to move the ball in this game. The question comes on the other side of the ball because UNLV's offense is definitely explosive. 26th in success rate, 23rd in PPA per play. New Mexico has struggled on the defensive side of the ball. Now, there is an injury concern for UNLV on this side of the ball. Their main wide receiver, Jaden Bradley, he's listed as questionable. From what I read, I don't think he's going to play. He has 29 catches. The next highest on the team is the running back with 18. So this dude is their leading receiver by far. Looks like UNLV might be missing him. And look, I'm not sure if we can count on New Mexico's defense to go on the road into that dome and stop this explosive UNLV offense. But let's give New Mexico a little bit of credit. 2 of their last 3 games, they played very good Mountain West offenses in Boise State and Utah State. And the defense really did hold their own. It wasn't complete shutdown or anything, but success rate under 40%, 5.56 yards per play. UNLV missing their main receiver. Also, this is a UNLV offense that wants to run the ball. New Mexico has been stronger against the run. Bottom line in this game, I don't think it should be above a field goal, 3.5 max. So at 4.5, I think the move would be to go New Mexico. Should be high-scoring game, back and forth, come down to the last possession. Give me New Mexico plus 4.5. Michigan State, Minnesota. First, I want to give a special shout out to Sparty for the backdoor cover last week against Michigan. This game, this was one of the last games of the night. This actually secured my profitable Saturday. I came down to it at the end. Mississippi State blew it, so I needed Michigan State to have a profitable day, and they blew it. They gave Michigan a touchdown to go up. I think it was 31-13, and I was like, there's no way. They just blew this cover. They actually drove down and scored a backdoor covering touchdown. You love to see it. So special shout out to Aiden Childs and the Michigan State offense for driving down the field and meaninglessly scoring a touchdown to cover for me. It was greatly appreciated. Now they're going on the road to play a Minnesota team that we all perceive to be bad. And I mean, they are bad. Minnesota is not a good, this is one of the worst Minnesota teams we've seen in years. That being said, Minnesota's embarrassing performance this year have all been on the road. If you isolate Minnesota's body of work this year to just their home games, it actually doesn't look bad at all. They're actually 5-0 at home. And look, these aren't wins that set the world on fire. A 3-point win over Rutgers, 13-point win over a MAC program, 7-point win over Purdue where they needed to come from behind. The Nebraska win is kind of a statement. I'm not saying these are amazing wins. I'm just saying we have this perception that Minnesota is a terrible team. A lot of that perception is built off of how bad they've looked in their road games. If you just isolate it to their home games, they've actually been all right this year. Overall, top to bottom, I actually think Michigan State might have the better team here. I know that sounds like kind of a hot take. They've got some weapons on offense. I think Aiden Childs is pretty good. They've got wide receivers. Coming into the season, the offensive line, there was hope surrounding it. The problem is the injuries to this offensive line are so noticeable. I mean, they can't generate push. They can't protect Childs. This offensive line is so injured that I can't even decipher who the starting offensive line was supposed to be because so many guys have been knocked out of the lineup, then thrown back in, and then injured again. That one tackle, Ramil, came back for the Michigan game, got hurt, left that game early. So he came back, got hurt again. So this Michigan State offensive line is such a mess that it's really hard for Aiden Childs to develop any sort of rhythm. They've got wide receivers, but if Aiden Childs doesn't have time to throw the ball, how can he get it to him? I really doubt we're going to be able to count on Michigan State to run the football in this game. I mean, in their last 4 games, they're averaging 2.92 yards per carry. Success rate per rush under 40%. Like I said, this offensive line just can't generate push. And Minnesota, this is not a good football team. One thing they can do is defend the run. They do have a strong defensive front, especially at home in that building. So I'm pretty confident saying Michigan State's not going to be able to run the ball in this game. Now, Minnesota has been vulnerable to the pass at times this year. Remember, the pieces they lost from last year's team, they lost their edge rushers and their corners. So coming into this year, I thought Minnesota might be vulnerable to the pass. The pass rush hasn't been anything special. So Childs might have some room to work here. They do have talent at the wide receiver position, so I'm assuming there will be some opportunities for Childs to make some plays. It's just so hard to count on sustained drives from this Michigan State offense with the current state of that offensive line. But it's not completely out of the question. Remember, Michigan State was moving the ball on the road against Indiana. 45.9% success rate in that game, over 5.9 yards per play. And it wasn't in garbage time either. They actually scored a touchdown to go up 10-7 in that game. In that entire game against Indiana, they only punted twice. They were actually moving the chains and getting themselves into scoring position on the road against Indiana. They had a missed field goal. I think they had 2 missed field goals. They had a turnover on downs deep in Indiana territory. So Michigan State did play a solid offensive game on the road against Indiana. They didn't look very good last week against Michigan, but I don't think it's completely out of the question that Michigan State's able to move the ball in the game. The question is on the other side of the ball, because I have no idea. These 2 units are so bad. The Michigan State defense, even more injured than the offense somehow. So they also might have just lost their best player, their co-captain, linebacker, leading tackler, Jordan Hall. He's listed as questionable. He might not be ready to go for this one. Their defensive tackle, Ben Roberts, is going to miss his 2nd straight game. He's listed as doubtful. And then in addition to that, Minnesota might be missing their star running back and arguably the most important player on their team, Darius Taylor. He left the Iowa game after 1 carry. So not only are neither of these units very good, but they both have key injury concerns. So trying to decipher if Michigan State's able to generate stops is tough. I mean, look at the last 4 games for both of these units. Michigan State's defense is allowing over 36 points per game, over 6.3 yards per play. They've really struggled. And Minnesota's offense has been just as bad. 14.3 points per game, 4.04 yards per play. Minnesota's offense has been terrible and might be missing their star running back. Michigan State's defense has been terrible and might be missing their captain, linebacker, leading tackler. Like, how can we make a judgment here on this side of the ball? I mean, it's weird to consider an under in a Michigan State game because the defense has been so bad and they're so injured, but we should see a slow-paced game. I think both offenses are going to struggle. So 44.5 doesn't seem that low. I mean, give me under 44.5, slight lean towards Minnesota minus 3.5 because they have been stronger at home, but this is a sloppy one. Under in Minnesota. Fresno State, Boise State in the milk can rivalry. I'm not joking. They actually play for a milk can. So Fresno State went with the quarterback change last week and benched E.J. Warner, went with Carson Conklin, who's a Sacramento State transfer. Didn't exactly go well. They got shut out at home in his first start, 23-0 against San Diego State. Now let's cut Fresno a little bit of slack. In this game, they averaged under 3.5 yards per play, under 34% success rate. Let's cut them a little bit of slack, though. They played San Diego State, who's the best defense in the conference, and that includes Boise. That's San Diego State. I think on paper, they're like the fourth best defense in the entire country right now. I mean, that San Diego State defense is so official. So maybe we cut him a little bit of slack. Carson's, that kid's first FBS start is against the best defense in the conference. Now, in terms of their matchup against Boise, like I said, this is the milk can rivalry. Fresno's actually beaten them in back-to-back games. November 4th, 2023, Fresno beat them 37-30. And then the time before that, they beat them in the Mountain West Championship game 2022. Score was 28-16. So a triple revenge spot for Boise against a conference rival that's had their number. Here's a picture of the milk can. They literally play for this, the milk can rivalry. Actually, last week's game, Fresno State against San Diego State, that's the old oil can rivalry. So they lost the old oil can. Fresno now looks to claim the milk can. Yeah, this is college football culture, man. They're playing for a milk can. In terms of the matchup, Boise State's defense has shown some vulnerabilities here and there. This is really a tough environment for Carson Conklin to make his second career FBS start. His first career FBS road start, by the way. He does have experience, though. He was the starting quarterback at Sacramento State last year, which is a formidable FCS program. So it's not like he's a freshman or he's brand new or anything. And let's not pretend like Boise State's defense has been perfect this year. We've seen them struggle several times. I mean, the UNLV game, UNLV was moving the ball. Notre Dame did whatever they wanted on Boise. Air Force was moving the ball pretty easily on Boise. Even South Florida in the opener was making some plays on Boise. Now, those are some really good offenses, but I don't think this Boise State defense is nearly as elite as the numbers show. And check this out. It's looking like the Boise State defense might be a little reliant on forcing turnovers. They have 16 takeaways so far this season. In games where they force 2 or more turnovers, they're allowing just 14 points per game, 4.14 yards per play, success rate under 29%. In games where they force 1 or less turnovers, they're allowing over 32 points per game, over 7.1 yards per play. So it seems like the key here for Fresno State is protect the football. Here's the problem. Fresno State's turned the ball over 17 times already this year. So can Fresno State protect the football? We'll have to see. Now, on the other side of the ball, Fresno State's defense has been a little disappointing so far this year, but they have been slightly stronger against the run. And Boise State is trying to run the ball. It's been really ugly looking. Nothing like we saw with Ashton Jeanty last year. They're also missing 2 of their top receivers in this game. Chris Marshall and Ben Ford. Ben Ford's out for the year. Chris Marshall, he's been ruled out for this one. I believe that might be their top 2 receivers. Look at their last 5 games. Boise State, 4.01 yards per carry, 35.2% success rate per rush. Are they going to be able to run the ball in this game on Fresno State? And look, Fresno has struggled against the pass, but they're missing their top 2 receivers. This is a rivalry game. I kind of want to take Fresno here. The reason I don't have a bet on it is I had Duck on the live show. He really likes Boise laying the big number, and I don't feel confident enough to go against them. So give me Fresno plus 17.5, but I didn't bet it. Pittsburgh's heading out west to play Stanford in this one, and this Stanford team, so spoiler alert, I bet Stanford in this game, and I think this team might be a little undervalued right now based on their schedule. I mean, this team has played 5 tough road games already. They've been everywhere. If you look at their schedule, let me pull it up right here. Their easiest road game was on the road to Hawaii. That was their easiest game. They went to BYU, at Virginia, who's strong this year, at SMU, at Miami. I mean, they've been everywhere. this team. They've only played 3 home games, and number one, they've played a lot better in their home games. Number two, they haven't lost any. They're actually undefeated, a perfect 3-0 at home, and it's not like they played scrub games. Boston College, San Jose State, that's a decent Mountain West program right there, and Florida State. So they're undefeated, a perfect 3-0 at home. And when you look at Stanford's year-long numbers, like let's take a look at this matchup here. Pittsburgh's offense against Stanford's defense, 118th in success rate, 105th in PPA per play. You have to keep in mind that Stanford's just been flying all over the country playing all these tough road games. If you isolate Stanford's defensive numbers to just their home games, they don't look nearly as bad. Like, they're not an elite defense, don't get me wrong. They're allowing 20.7 points per game at home, 6.3 yards per play isn't great, 43.4% success rate. The point I'm making is, you look at the year-long numbers, it looks like Stanford's one of the worst teams in the country, and that's just not the case. They played much better at home. Now, there are some injury concerns here for Stanford. Actually, Pittsburgh's dealing with some injuries also. These are two very injured teams right now. So in terms of Stanford's defense, safety Jay Green, I believe he's 4th on the team in tackles. He missed the Miami game last week and is listed as questionable, so not sure if they're getting their safety back. Cornerback Colin Wright, he's listed as questionable. That's their starting corner. So 2 members of the Stanford secondary are on the injury report listed as questionable. But on the Pittsburgh side, their leading wide receiver, Kenny Johnson, literally leads the team in receiving yards and receptions. He got injured in the NC State game last week. He's listed as questionable. And their star running back, Desmond Reed, arguably the most important player to their offense, he got injured in the NC State game as well. He was seen in a walking boot. So he's listed as questionable as well. So serious injury question marks on the Stanford defense and the Pittsburgh offense. And on the other side of the ball, I'm going through this one quick because my reasoning for it is pretty simple. On the other side of the ball, there's more injuries here. Stanford star running back Micah Ford is listed as questionable. If you've watched any Stanford games this year, you know how important he is to the offense. But the 2 best players on Pittsburgh's defense, both their linebackers, Kyle Lewis, who was all-conference last year, and Raheem Biles, who leads the team in tackles, they both missed the NC State game last week. They're both listed as questionable. So it's not even certain if Pittsburgh's getting those 2 guys back. So we've got injury concerns on the Stanford offense, the Stanford defense, the Pittsburgh offense, and the Pittsburgh defense. And in terms of Stanford's offense, kind of the same story as the defense. Sure, year-long numbers, they look like one of the worst Power 4 offenses, but if you isolate it to just their home games, they're averaging 26.7 points per game, over 6.1 yards per play. This Stanford team just seems to play considerably better at home. I bet Stanford plus 14.5 here. It looks like it came down to a flat 14. Pittsburgh is the much better team. There's no arguing that. But you've got a freshman quarterback flying all the way out to the West Coast, possibly missing his 2 most important offensive weapons, his star running back and his leading receiver. It just seems like the perfect spot to take Stanford, who's played much better at home, getting 2 touchdowns. I wouldn't be surprised if Stanford wins. I'm on Stanford plus 14.5. I did bet this one. Texas Tech is on the road in Manhattan to play Kansas State in what is a huge Big 12 game. So first of all, Kansas State is by no means out of this. They're sitting here 3-2 in conference. If they beat Texas Tech in this game, Cincinnati is up there at 5-0. They still have to play BYU and I didn't write it down. They still have tough games left on their schedule. They play Utah this week. So these Big 12 teams at the top, they're going to beat each other up. So Kansas State, if they beat Texas Tech here, they're right in the mix to possibly play in the Big 12 championship game. And they have not had problems playing against Texas Tech in the past. In fact, Texas Tech is 1-12. Not joking, 1-12 in their last 13 games against Kansas State. 2-10-1 against the spread. They have not won a game on the road in Manhattan since 2008. So they have not had problems playing this Texas Tech team in the past. On the offensive side of the ball, they're 28th in success rate, 16th in PPA per play. Now, Will Hammond is out for the season, but he's actually the backup quarterback. Their starting quarterback, Baron Morton, is set to return here. He's been bagged up. So Texas Tech actually gets their main quarterback back. This is not going to be a picnic, though. This Kansas State defense is strong. They've been playing strong all year. Their struggles earlier in the season were mostly on the offensive side of the ball. Look at Kansas State's last 2 games. They played TCU and Kansas, 2 explosive offenses. They allowed under 4.9 yards per play against TCU and Kansas, 22.5 points per game. So back-to-back great defensive games against very strong offenses. And yes, we've got Baron Morton coming back from injury. Remember, This is not our first year watching Baron Morton play football. He's been there for years. There's been a very clear-cut narrative with Baron Morton. At home in Lubbock, I trust Baron Morton. He's shown us over the years that he can piece defenses up at home in Lubbock. On the road against these tough defenses, this is where we've seen Baron Morton struggle, and this year it's been no different. What were his 2 worst starts of the season? Utah and Houston. Those happen to be his 2 road starts. Remember, in the Utah game, Texas Tech's offense started looking a lot better after Morton got hurt. Will Hamid came in, and that's when Texas Tech started running away with the game. In fact, I've heard people say that they believe Utah would have won that game if Baron Morton didn't get hurt. So we've seen this dude struggle in these tough road games. He struggled in the tough road games so far this year. Texas Tech's offense, their least efficient games so far this year, have been their road games. Sure, 30.3 points per game. They played a million miles an hour. All their games are going to be high scoring. 5.83 yards per play, success rate under 42%. So Baron Morton, I don't trust him as much on the road. This Texas Tech offense, not quite as potent on the road. Kansas State's defense playing back-to-back strong games against explosive offenses. This is not going to be a picnic for Baron Morton. I think Kansas State's defense can play a great game here. Now, on the other side of the ball, this Texas Tech defensive front is elite. They're 3rd in success rate, 4th in PPA per play, looking like one of the strongest defenses in the entire country. Now, they did lose one of their best defensive linemen, Skylar Gill-Howard. He's out for the season, but he's been out for a few games now. I think he got hurt like 3 weeks ago. They're still playing at a high level. And Kansas State's going to be missing their star running back, Dylan Edwards, for another game as well. So a couple key injuries on both sides. This Kansas State offense, look, I'm not going to make a case that they're going to piece up this elite Texas Tech defense. I will say, though, and I've been saying this, Kansas State's offense has looked considerably better since the bye week. They got off to that ugly start where they lost to Army. They got beat by Arizona. They lost to Iowa State. They almost lost to North Dakota. Kansas State was kind of the laughingstock of college football there. But then they went into the bye week, and since then, I don't think it's being talked about as much. Kansas State is playing much better football since the bye week. Over 6.1 yards per play, 42.6% success rate, over 37 points per game. Avery Johnson delivering throws from a clean pocket, a 127.3 NFL passer rating from a clean pocket. That was kind of the problem earlier in the season. Like, even when he had time, he didn't know what to do with it. He was under a lot of pressure, and that's another thing. The Kansas State pass protection, that was an issue early in the season. They've done a much better job protecting Avery Johnson. Now, those teams, UCF, Baylor, TCU, Kansas, not comparable to Texas Tech's defensive front. This is a much bigger test, but Avery Johnson's been much more efficient throwing the ball. They've got both their wide receivers healthy and on the field. Jace Brown and Jerron Bradley, both were dealing with injuries earlier in the year. I don't think Jace Brown actually missed the game, but he was listed as questionable in a couple of them. Bradley missed a few games. They're both healthy on the field. And if you just look at Kansas State's body of work here, look at the left side of this graphic. This is before the bye. You can see the nail biter to Iowa State, the nail biter win over North Dakota, the nail biter against Army they lost, the nail biter against Arizona, although Arizona outplayed them in that game. Since the bye week, I mean, they're not winning nail biters. They beat UCF by 2 touchdowns. They beat TCU, which is a strong team, by 13. They went on the road in their rivalry game and beat Kansas 42-17. Their only loss since the bye week was a 35-34 last-second loss to Baylor on the road at Baylor. This team is playing much better, and I just don't think the price reflects it. This should not be more than a touchdown, in my opinion. I bet this. I'm on Kansas State plus 7.5. I think they have a shot at winning it. Delaware Liberty, we need to know if Minicucci's going to play. Yeah, he left the Middle Tennessee game injured. Remember, he's already the backup quarterback. Their starting quarterback, I believe his name is Marker. He got injured in the first quarter of the opener in week 1. So Minicucci's actually been the backup quarterback this whole time. So if he's unable to play, we're looking at a 3rd-string quarterback for Delaware. His name's Braden Streeter, and we got a glimpse of him. Last week at the end of the game when Minicucci got hurt, he came in. He threw an interception that could have potentially lost them the game against Middle Tennessee. So this Liberty defense has been vulnerable to the run all year. Delaware's a passing offense, and if they've got their 3rd-string quarterback and don't pose as much of a threat through the air, they might be really easy for Liberty to game plan against. I mean, Delaware's really been struggling to run the ball in their last couple games against Jacksonville State and Middle Tennessee State, under 2 yards per carry as a team. 56.5 rushing yards per game. This is not an offense that really runs the ball. Like I said, it's a passing offense. So having the 3rd-string quarterback in there would be a huge concern. Now, I can't find any information on Minicucci. I searched Twitter, I searched articles, I searched everywhere. I couldn't find anything on Minicucci. Maybe by the time you're watching this, it's been announced whether or not he's going to play, but I can't find anything on whether or not he's going to play. Now, the good news, if you're betting Delaware in this game, if Minicucci does play, Delaware should be able to move the ball on this Liberty defense. This is already a defense that's dealing with injuries. Remember, their safety, Brylan Green, he's been out the last 2 or 3 games. Cornerback Elijah Hopkins, he's been out since week 3. They just lost their linebacker and leading tackler for the season, Joseph Carter, and that's a new injury. That just happened. So in addition to missing 2 pieces in the secondary, they're now missing their main tackler there in the middle. So this is a very injured Liberty defense. I know their numbers against the run look strong in their last 2 games, just 3.21 yards per carry. That was against UTEP and New Mexico State, 2 offenses that throw the ball and can't really run it. Those are 2 of the worst rushing attacks in the country. If you look at the 2 games before that, I mean, almost 7 yards per carry to James Madison and Old Dominion. So even though I don't trust Delaware to run the ball, if Minicucci's in there, they'll be able to run the ball in this game against this injured Liberty defense. They'll probably be able to throw it as well. So if Minicucci plays, Delaware should be able to move the ball in this game. We just don't know if he's playing. I can't find anything on it. Now, on the other side of the ball, this Delaware defense actually hasn't looked that bad recently. Their numbers on the year look pretty awful. But I still think Liberty has the edge. I mean, when we're looking at Liberty's year-long offensive numbers, got to keep in mind that they played 2 games without Ethan Vasco. They were missing an offensive lineman. I think they were missing their running back for a couple games as well. So when we're looking at their year-long numbers here, 90th in success rate, 104th in PPA per play. The offense was so bad in those 2 games where they were really injured that it's definitely skewing the numbers a little bit. And I know they haven't really been able to run the ball in the last 2. In their last 2 games, just over 5 yards per play, 41.8% success rate, 24.5 points per game. So you might be thinking, well, Kyle, Ethan Vasco's back. They're not as injured anymore, and they're still not moving the ball. Yeah, that's true. But one thing UTEP and New Mexico State can do, the strength of both those teams is defending the run. And this is a Liberty offense that wants to run the ball. So yes, they did get healthy for the last 2 games, but they happen to play 2 pretty strong run defenses. If you rewind back to before the injuries in weeks 2 and 3, that's the last time Liberty was healthy and played a vulnerable defense, Jacksonville State and Bowling Green. I mean, the offense looked a lot more efficient, over 6.7 yards per play, over 44% success rate. They didn't put a ton of points on the board, but the offense was moving the ball. So, and Delaware's defense, like I said, they've actually done a pretty good job against the run. 4.74 yards per carry allowed in their last 4 games, though. They're most likely still missing their linebacker, Dylan Traynor. If this Liberty team healthier with an 8-day rest advantage at home, I think they can run the ball on this Delaware defense. So the way I would bet this one, if Minicucci's playing, I'd probably go over 51.5. If Minicucci isn't playing, I'd definitely be on Liberty minus 3.5. So obviously I don't have that information. Maybe by the time you're watching this, you have it. If Minicucci plays, over 51.5. I don't know if I'd actually bet it. It would be a lean towards the over. If Minicucci doesn't play, I would definitely bet Liberty minus 3.5. Georgia, Florida, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party has certainly been more enjoyable for Georgia Bulldogs fans in recent years. Florida just 1-7 in their last 8 games against Georgia, 3-5 against the number. This is a crazy game for interim head coach Billy Gonzalez to make his debut. His first game as interim head coach is against Georgia in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. So obviously the marquee matchup here is Georgia's offense against Florida's defense. We know the strength of this Florida team is the defense. This defense has been strong this year. Still dealing with some injuries. These are not new. Cornerback Dijon Johnson is going to miss another game. Defensive tackle Caleb Banks, who's missed most of the season, he's going to miss another game. But even without those guys, this defense has been very strong. The question is, can they slow down this Georgia offense? Now, Georgia is going to be missing a wide receiver, one of their main ones too, Colby Young. He might be out for the season, actually. So they are missing a wide receiver, but they get a key piece on the offensive line back in their last game, Ernest Green. He's back, which is huge. Florida's defense has played well, like I said, but you take a look at their defensive game logs. I mean, which offenses on this list are comparable to Georgia? I'd have to say the only offense on here that I'd compare to Georgia in terms of explosivity would be Texas A&M. And if you look at Florida's defensive numbers from that game specifically, it doesn't look so great. They gave up 34 points, over 6.1 yards per play, 45.6% success rate. Now, this game was on the road at Kyle Field. This one's obviously at a neutral site. but still, this Georgia offense is comparable to Texas A&M. Maybe not quite as good, but it's close. This Florida pass rush hasn't been all that great. They blitz a lot, but haven't generated a ton of pressure. Gunnar Stockton, excellent numbers against the blitz. He's also handled pressure well. I like this Florida defense, but I'm not sure if they can keep Georgia from scoring in this game. I do think the Bulldogs are going to score. The question is, on the other side of the ball, can Florida score points right back? Because this Georgia secondary, pretty much every time they see a good offense, they get carved up. They're also still going to be missing their starting safety, Kyron Jones. I think this is going to be the second game in a row he's missed. On the season, Georgia 84th in success rate per dropback, 94th in PPA per dropback. Look at Georgia's defensive numbers against good offenses this year. That's Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss. They're allowing over 33 points per game, over 6 yards per play, over 45% success rate. Look at their numbers specifically against the pass in those 3 games. Over 304 passing yards per game, 49.5% success rate per dropback, 8.27 yards per pass attempt. This Georgia pass rush is not the same elite Georgia pass rush we've seen in years past. DJ Lagway should have plenty of clean pockets to work from. The question is, does DJ Lagway make the throws from those clean pockets? And I gotta say, I think he does. I mean, not only has DJ Lagway been slightly better recently, but interim head coach Billy Gonzalez, he came right out and said it. They want to open the playbook more. They want to spread the ball out more. They want to get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. Now, their leading wide receiver, Vernell Brown, is out, but Dallas Wilson and Eugene Wilson, the 5-star freshman, and Eugene Wilson, the freshman from last year, they're both big-time playmakers. They're both going to be playing in this game. They should have plenty of opportunities to hit some home runs against a Georgia defense that just can't seem to stop giving up big plays. So I think Florida's going to score right back. I think we're going to see points in this game. The problem is I'm not sure how fast-paced the game is going to be. Georgia's 90th in seconds between snaps this year. Florida's 107th. 50.5 is a big number if we're going to see a slow-paced game. So my pick for the game would be over 50.5, but I think that number is probably efficient. I'm not sure if there's any edge here, but maybe I'll bet it for fun. Over 50.5. Oklahoma State, Kansas. So there was speculation that Oklahoma State's original starting quarterback, Hesny, I think that's how you say it, Hesny. It's spelled Hejny. So there was speculation that he might return. He's still out. He's not going to be back. But their backup quarterback, Zane Flores, is expected to return. So Oklahoma State's been rocking with their third-string quarterback, Sam Jackson, who's actually a wide receiver. So Oklahoma State's really been limited at the quarterback position. They should be getting their backup quarterback, Zane Flores, back, which I guess is something. I mean, they're 134th in success rate, 136th in PPA per play. This is the worst Power 4 offense. This might actually be an opportunity where Oklahoma State can score, though, because Kansas defense is not strong. In their last 6 games, they're allowing over 32 points per game, 6.39 yards per play. If Zane Flores plays, I would imagine Oklahoma State is able to score some points. Look, on the other side of the ball, they might not make a single stop, though. This defense is terrible, and they're going on the road to play Kansas, a very explosive offense coming off a disgusting loss to their rivals. They need to win here to keep their season alive, so it's a pissed-off Kansas team coming off an embarrassing loss at home that needs to win. Like, they can't sleepwalk through this one. Kansas might score 50 points in this game. Like, I'm not sure if Oklahoma State's defense makes a single stop. I know Kansas offense has looked a little shaky in their last 2 games, just 3.68 yards per play. They played Texas Tech and Kansas State, 2 defenses that don't even belong in the same conversation as Oklahoma State. And if you look at their schedule, I mean, they can't afford to even flirt with the idea of losing this game. They've got a road game at Arizona, a road game at Iowa State, then they play Utah. They need this one. Coming off the back-to-back losses, Kansas needs this game. I'm not sure if Kansas defense is good enough to lay the big number, but I do think they cover it. By the way, in addition to that, Oklahoma State interim coach Doug Meacham, he straight up said they're playing some younger guys and preserving red shirts. Now that there's only 4 games left, they can play some of their freshmen and still preserve their red shirts. So we might see freshmen out there for Oklahoma State. Kansas is going to put up a big number. I would either lay it. I personally bet the over at 55.5. That's what I actually bet. I'm not mad at laying it with Kansas either. They should score a lot of points in this game. Mississippi State, Arkansas. Man, both these teams coming off heartbreaking losses. How does Mississippi State lose that game? That would have snapped the streak too. Mississippi State has now lost 16 consecutive SEC games. They've lost 4 in a row after starting 4-0. They've blown leads in their last 2. And you know what? Same goes for Arkansas. How did they lose that game? They were in complete control of that game. Taylor Green throws 4 interceptions, including 3 in the fourth quarter. One of them was a pick 6 to give the lead up. How do you lose that game, Arkansas? So both of these teams coming off backbreakers. Now, good news for Mississippi State's offense. Number one, they're playing Arkansas, who was probably the worst defense in the SEC. They're 131st in success rate, 128th in PPA per play. Mississippi State should be getting their playmaking RB back on the field as well, Fluff Bothwell. Arkansas actually, I think, is getting their defensive tackle Cam Ball back, who's missed the last couple. So there is a piece returning to Arkansas's defense, but Arkansas can't seem to stop anybody. I mean, last week was the perfect opportunity for Arkansas to finally play a good game. In the 5 games before last week, they played Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Memphis, Tennessee, Texas A&M. So Arkansas's defense kind of had a little bit of an excuse. They were getting lit up, but at least they could say, oh, we're playing the best offenses in the country. And that was valid. Well, they played Auburn at home last week. And not that Auburn's terrible, but that offense isn't explosive at all. They allowed 5.43 yards per play, 47.9%. I mean, it was their best defensive effort in a while. Still gave up 33 points, although Taylor Green repeatedly gifting the football to Auburn definitely contributed to it. Regardless, I mean, if you can't stop the Auburn offense, how are you going to stop Mississippi State, who, by the way, when it comes to Mississippi State's offense, you can kind of say the same thing that we were saying for Arkansas's defense. They've looked a little shaky in their last 3 games, just 22.7 points per game, 5.2 yards per play. Look at their opponents. Texas A&M, one of the best teams in the country. Florida's got an elite defense. Texas got an elite defense. So might be looking at a buy low here for Mississippi State's offense. If you remember earlier in the season, before they were seeing all these elite defenses, Mississippi State's offense looked pretty good. And getting Fluff Bothwell back, they were missing an offensive tackle as well. He's back. Yeah, Mississippi State's going to score on Arkansas's defense. The question is, are they capable of making any stops on the other side? Mississippi State's defense is nowhere near as bad as Arkansas's, but it's still not a good defense. And Arkansas's offense has been as explosive as any other offense in the country. I got to say, though, I'm a little concerned about Taylor Green's knee injury. I didn't even know he had a knee injury going into last week, but it was pretty obvious he was not using his legs as much. He only had 14 yards rushing in the Auburn game, which was by far his lowest total of the season. And then I was reading about it after the game. Apparently he had this knee injury, and I'm sitting there with a losing Arkansas ticket. Like, would have been nice to have known this before the game, that he was dealing with a knee injury. For those of you that have never watched Taylor Green play, he throws the ball, but he uses his athleticism a lot. He's a fast guy, and if he's got a knee injury, that seriously hinders Arkansas's offense. And look, this Mississippi State defense, again, it's at home. Arkansas should score points. They're allowing 35 points per game, 6.3 yards per play in SEC play. If it was just Tennessee and Texas A&M, okay. But we saw Florida and Texas putting up numbers on Mississippi State, although the Bulldogs did play some good defense against Texas for like 3 quarters. But yeah, Arkansas should score points as long as Taylor Green is healthy. Not too worried about last week. I mean, he'd been so good leading up to that game. Threw 4 interceptions, and I'm not saying we should sweep that under the rug, but can't just erase all the electric fantasy football numbers he's been putting up leading to this game against Auburn. So, in my opinion, everything in this one points towards a shootout. 67.5 is the total last time I looked. I guess I go over. As far as a side, I'd probably lean towards Mississippi State at 4.5. I would probably put this one at 3.5. I don't think there's that big of a gap. In fact, I think you can make an argument these two teams are pretty close. So in Arkansas should probably be around 3. So I lean Mississippi State at plus 4.5. But this one, this is a crazy game. Over or Mississippi State? Virginia's out on the West Coast to play Cal, and we're talking about a Virginia Cavs team that's sitting on top of the ACC. Well, they're a half game back behind Georgia Tech. 4-0 in conference. They've been hanging on by a thread. We're talking about 3 straight overtime wins in conference games here for Virginia. So will this string of luck? Well, actually, it's probably unfair to call it luck. They've been winning these games. I just meant they've had, at the end of the game, these games are going to overtime, and it's bouncing Virginia's way. So eventually you'd have to think, I mean, if they keep playing like this, the offense is kind of falling off. They're not going to keep winning games unless the offense figures it out. But we'll start on the other side of the ball. Good news for Virginia is this defense, it's definitely vulnerable to the run. They're 72nd in success rate per rush, 93rd in PPA per rush. The reason that's good news is not only does Cal never run the ball, but they're missing their RB2 and RB3. And even when they try to run the ball, they're not good at it. So I'm not sure if Cal's offense is necessarily equipped to exploit what Virginia struggled with so far this year. And in terms of defending the pass, Virginia's been pretty good in this department. They've generated consistent pressure. They've done it without blitzing a lot. Saka Politelli, not the best at handling pressure. 50.2 NFL passer rating when pressured so far this year. So Virginia can probably put some pressure on him. He hasn't had run support all year. He probably won't have run support in this one. We got to keep in mind that this Cal offense just hasn't been playing very well. They played back-to-back competitive games, and they ended up winning the North Carolina one, even though they probably didn't deserve to. In their last 2 games, they're averaging under 4.5 yards per play, 37.2% success rate. So this Cal offense hasn't looked very good at all. I know it's a cross-country flight here for Virginia flying out to the West Coast, but Cal's flying back from Virginia Tech themselves, so they're taking the same flight. I think Virginia could play a good defensive game here. It's on the other side of the ball. This is where I think the advantage swings way back over towards Cal. This Virginia offense, great numbers on the year, 48th in success rate, 32nd in PPA per play. It's fallen off a cliff. I don't know what's going on with this Virginia offense. They're really struggling. And not that Cal's defense has necessarily set the world on fire, but the way this Virginia offense looks, I'm not sure if we can trust them to move the ball even against a Cal defense that isn't playing its best. Now, Cal is a little bit thin at safety here. Manitai went down, and that was already their 3rd safety. So they're pretty thin at safety in this one. But the way this Virginia offense looks, this is even a healthier offense, by the way. They got their center, Brady Wilson, back. That was last week. Their slot wide receiver, Cam Ross, is also set to return. So this Virginia offense is even healthier, and it just flat out doesn't look good. In their last 3 games, they found ways to win all 3 of these games. Against Louisville, Washington State, and North Carolina, they're averaging 4.22 yards per play. Under 34% success rate. These are some really inefficient offensive numbers. I'm now reading that Chandler Morris is dealing with a shoulder injury on his non-throwing shoulder. The run game has just disappeared here for Virginia. So the Cavs, they're finding ways to win games, but the offense does not look efficient at all. I was kind of considering an under in this one. The reason I couldn't pull the trigger on it is the pace. Both these teams tend to move at a fast pace, 38th and 51st. And also Cal, all they do is throw the ball. You do not want a team moving at a fast pace and throwing the football if you're trying to bet an under. So even though I do think the defenses will play well, I couldn't get there. So my pick in this game would be under 52.5. And I also think Virginia's good fortune comes to an end here. I think Cal could get them. So under 52.5, Cal +6. I didn't bet this game. Wyoming, San Diego State. For the first time in Mountain West history, this has never happened before. We have 2 teams playing that are both coming off shutout victories. Wyoming 28-0 over Colorado State. San Diego State 23-0 over Fresno. So it's never happened before in the history of the Mountain West. Straight up, I'm not sure how we can expect Wyoming to score points in this one. San Diego State's defense, this defense is better than Boise. This is the best defense in the Mountain West. This might be the best group of 5 defense in the country. They're 4th in success rate, 1st in PPA per play. On the season, they're allowing 10.4 points per game. On the season, 10.4 points per game, under 3.9 yards per play on the year, and they're even healthier. They were missing one of their main linebackers, Tano Latuli. He actually returned from injury last game. He had a pick 6 in his first game back. So they've been doing this, missing a linebacker. He comes back and has a pick 6 in his first game back against Fresno. So this San Diego State defense is definitely official. Now, Wyoming did shake things up offensively a little bit in their last one. They demoted the offensive coordinator. He gave the play calling duties to Booknight, who used to be a wide receiver at Wyoming. So I think he was the wide receivers coach. I'm not really sure. So they changed the play caller. And I mean, I guess it did look a little bit more explosive in the Colorado State game. They scored 28 points, 6.31 yards per play, but they didn't score any points after the 10-minute remaining mark in the 3rd quarter. They scored to go up 28-0 and then didn't score again. Also, 35.6% success rate certainly isn't good. So I don't think switching the play callers is going to change my mind on Wyoming getting shut down by this San Diego State defense, because they are really good. They generate consistent pressure without sending extra rushers. Caden Anderson has struggled with pressure all year. Yeah, I really think Wyoming's going to struggle to score points here against this San Diego State defense. We've really only seen this Wyoming offense in a harsh road environment once this entire season. That was week 4 in Boulder. They were held to a 35.8% success rate. Their other 2 road games were against Akron and Air Force, 2 terrible defenses. So, yeah, Wyoming should really struggle to move the ball in this one. On the other side of the ball, it's a much closer battle because Wyoming's defense has actually been pretty good. There's a couple injury concerns here for Wyoming defensively. Their cornerback, D. Miller. I'm sorry if I can't pronounce his first name. So he's going to miss this game. It's his first missed game of the year. That's one of their corners. Another one of their corners, Marquis Grant, he's wearing a cast on his hand. So I believe he's the CB3 or CB4. Defensive tackle Vias, he might miss his second straight game as well. So there's some injury concerns on the Wyoming defense. And my second concern, on top of injuries for this Wyoming defense, San Diego State, I mean, Sean Lewis seems to have figured it out. Took a few games there, and honestly, first 4 or 5 games, it was looking like San Diego State's offense was kind of a dud. Sean Lewis, Denagel, they're on the same page. In the last 3 games, they're averaging over 37 points per game, over 6.8 yards per play, 54.8% success rate. This offense out of nowhere is clicking. We're seeing downfield throws. We're seeing the run game working. San Diego State looks good offensively. Now, I don't want to just completely sleep on this Wyoming defense. Like I said, they have been playing well. In their last 4 games, they've seen some good offenses, too. UNLV can move the ball. San Jose State can move the ball. Air Force can move the ball. Colorado State's a joke, but the other Colorado State's a mess. I shouldn't call them a joke. But the other 3 teams, those are good offenses. They're allowing less than 5 yards per play, 40.3% success rate. So Wyoming's defense is playing well, and I don't want to just sweep that under the rug. The problem is I just don't know how they score points, and now they're on the road coming off their big rivalry game against Colorado State. That was a huge win for them, and they're going on the road against the best defense in the conference. It's homecoming here for San Diego State. It's San Diego State's first home game in 29 days. So their first game back in 29 days. That place is going to be fired up because San Diego State's got a chance to win the Mountain West this year. Should be a really cool environment for homecoming. Yeah, I'm on San Diego State in this one. I bet it. San Diego State minus 10.5. I also glanced at an under, but I decided to lay the 10.5 instead. So I'm on the Aztecs. Wake Forest, Florida State. How is this happening again to Florida State? 9 straight ACC losses. That's truly crazy. 9 consecutive ACC losses for Florida State. How is that even possible with the talent they have on that team? I don't know what's going on with Florida State. Now they're at home against Wake Forest, which, by the way, is a team that's on the complete opposite trajectory. Wake Forest is 3-1 in their last 4 games. Their only loss was a 30-29 overtime loss to Georgia Tech, who's probably the best team in the conference. So you got Florida State probably looking to move on from the head coach, all the drama surrounding Florida State. And then you got Wake Forest, who they just hired Jake Dickert. This is year 1. Wake Forest has to be on cloud 9 right now, the way their program is headed. So you've got 2 teams moving in basically complete opposite directions right now. Now, in terms of the Wake Forest defense against Florida State's offense has looked fine, by the way. I mean, the offensive numbers look good. Their problem is penalties, turnovers. They just keep shooting themselves in the foot. It's not that the offense can't move the ball. That hasn't been their problem. It looks like Castellanos is going to play. By the way, I'm reading trending towards playing. So I don't think it's confirmed that he's going to play, but it looks like he is going to play in this one. Regardless, this is a tough test because Wake Forest defensively has made me a believer. 7th in success rate, 10th in PPA per play. What is happening in college football where Wake Forest, on paper, is one of the most efficient defenses in the country, and they really put the exclamation point on it last week? I had my doubts. I picked SMU on the show in this one, minus 2.5. I said this Wake defense needs to prove it to me. Well, they proved it. Because against SMU, one of the most powerful offenses in the conference, Wake held them to under 3.7 yards per play, under 21% success rate, 12 points. Wake completely blanked SMU's offense. Now, SMU's offense is dealing with injuries, and Jennings is hobbled. I get it. But Wake, what a statement here with this defensive game. Now, again, it's not that Florida State can't move the ball, but the way Wake is playing defensively right now, that program has a ton of confidence. They're coming in. They're thinking they could win this game. Yeah, I think Wake could really slow down this Florida State offense. Now, on the other side of the ball, If you're asking me how I expect Wake Forest to move the ball in Florida State, the answer is I'm not sure. They keep figuring it out. They're playing really good football. Florida State has been vulnerable to the pass, but they've played some really good passing attacks. So I'm not sure how Wake Forest is going to sustain drives here against a defense that's much more talented than their offense is. But the way Wake Forest is playing defensively and the confidence that team is playing with, this number should not be 10.5. So I'm on Wake. I think they keep it close. Wake Forest plus 10.5. Arizona, Colorado. We've seen such extremities from this Colorado team. They pick up that huge win in Week 7 against Iowa State. Yeah, they had a very favorable non-pass interference call to win that game. But yeah, big win nonetheless. They followed up by getting absolutely boat raced by Utah. By Utah's backup quarterback, by the way. Dampier didn't even play in the game. Final score was 53-7, and honestly, it could have been worse because Utah kind of took their foot off the pedal there. That was an absolute beatdown. Now, look, as far as this matchup against Arizona, Arizona is not a run-first offense, which should be good news for Colorado because they've really been struggling to stop the run. The thing is, I still think Arizona can run the ball in this game, and in fact, I think they can throw it also. Colorado played a couple of decent defensive games early in the season, but it's been really downhill for this Colorado defense. On the year, they're 104th in success rate, 84th in PPA per play. And if you take out the Utah game, because, okay, maybe you're thinking a 50-point game, let's take it out because it could skew the numbers. Even if you take out the Utah game and look at their last three, they're allowing 25.3 points per game, 47.4% success rate, 6 yards per play. So even if you take the Utah game out so it doesn't skew the numbers, it still doesn't look great. This Colorado defense really isn't playing well right now. And they're also dealing with serious injuries, by the way. Corner Makari Vickers is going to miss another game. Freshman edge rusher Alexander McPherson, he just got hurt in the Utah game. He's out. Defensive tackle Amari McNeil, he's listed as doubtful. These are all starters or key role players on the defense that are out for Colorado. So in addition to not playing the best football right now, this defense is also injured. And this Arizona offense is in almost the exact opposite situation. They're pretty much fully healthy. They're coming off a bye week, and the offense seems to be coming around. Fafita's looked sharp in his last few games. He looked really good in that Houston game. I know they lost that game, but Fafita played really well. In their last 3 games, Arizona's averaging 32 points per game, 5.92 yards per play, over 43% success rate. So, I mean, the way Colorado's defense has looked, Arizona coming off the bye week healthy against an injured Colorado defense, just coming off getting beat by 50. I think Arizona can move the ball in this game. And on the other side of the ball, it's kind of the same story here. More bad news for Colorado. Their starting guard and one of the best offensive linemen in the country, Xavier Hill, that was their big transfer portal guy this year. He just got hurt in the Utah game. He's been ruled out. So that's a new injury. That's not a lingering injury. Xavier Hill, brand new injury, one of the best offensive linemen in the entire country, ruled out for Colorado. And they're matched up against the Arizona defense, who, just like their offense, is pretty much fully healthy, coming off a bye week, and has surprisingly played well this year. They're 23rd in success rate, 33rd in PPA per play. Now, we do want to give Salter a little bit of credit. He's come around a little bit in terms of throwing the ball. Obviously, the Utah game was terrible all around, but in the 3 games before that, Salter is coming around. He's throwing the ball better. But, I mean, Arizona blitzes a lot, and they're missing their best offensive lineman, and Salter's been terrible under pressure so far this year. And in addition to that, he has a tendency to hold on to the football. So I think Arizona's defense can give him some problems as well. I really want to lay the 4 with Arizona in this game. I like them coming off a bye. I like the way they've looked. They really should have won that Houston game. The Colorado injuries, I think everything points towards a nice Arizona win here. Really reminds me of the Iowa State game. If you remember, I bet Iowa State against Colorado. I lost that bet, but I mean, Iowa State should have won. They were the better team in that game. Iowa State had a 47.8% success rate on offense compared to 31.3% for Colorado. I mean, Iowa State was sustaining drives a lot more smoothly than Colorado was. Like I said before, there was a crazy non-pass interference call that completely changed the game. So Iowa State was about to score, and they were throwing the ball to the end zone. The linebacker picked it off, but the receiver behind the linebacker was getting like blatant pass interference. The guy basically tackled him, and the ref threw the flag, but then they picked it up and said it wasn't catchable. The thing is, the ball wouldn't have got there. The linebacker would have picked it anyway, but the receiver literally got tackled. So it was really tough. So like I understand why they picked it up, but I don't know the exact rules on that. Like if your linebacker is going to pick the ball off, are you allowed to tackle the receiver behind him before the ball gets there? Because that's pretty much what happened. So that changed the entire game because Iowa State was about to score and take the lead in the fourth quarter, and then Colorado had the ball. So it really changed the entire game. Iowa State should have won that game. I can't do it with Arizona. I want to lay the 4 here, but Colorado, the fact that they just got beat by 50, I think that's messing with the number a little bit. If I can get Arizona at a flat 3, I would do it. But I think the fact that Colorado looks so bad, they didn't just lose by 50, they lost by 50. Like they didn't even belong on the same field as Utah last week. And I feel like that's shading the number a little bit. So yeah, I would play Arizona at a flat 3. At 4, it's Arizona or pass. All right, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Knoxville. I can't decide which unit I like less, the Oklahoma offense or the Tennessee defense. To be fair, both units are very injured, so maybe they'd be a lot better if they were at full strength. This Oklahoma offensive line is a train wreck in terms of injuries. They're going to be playing this game without Troy Everett, Jacob Sexton, Jake Taylor, and most likely Derek Simmons. I think there was a 5th offensive lineman. That's 4 names. There might even been a 5th one. The offensive line is such a mess. They are getting Logan Howland back, but they just lost Derek Simmons. So this offensive line, man, they can't catch a break, this Oklahoma offense. But on the Tennessee side, they've been missing their main 2 corners all season. And their linebacker and leading tackler, Arian Carter, he's listed as questionable. So in addition to missing the top 2 corners, which is what Tennessee's been playing with all year, they now might be missing their main tackler, inside linebacker there. He's listed as questionable. So both units just really ravaged with injuries. Now, before last week, you could have pointed at the Tennessee defense and kind of cut them a little bit of slack. They played a lot of explosive offenses. So you could have said, hey, this Tennessee defense isn't that bad. They played a lot of really good offenses, which was true, but they were kind of struggling to make stops against Kentucky last week. Kentucky scored 34 points, over 6.5 yards per play. Kentucky is not a good offense. And look, I've been very vocal about the fact that I don't think Oklahoma's offense is good. They weren't great last week at home against Ole Miss, which isn't even that strong of a defense. 33.3% success rate. They had 13 points late in the third quarter in a home game against Ole Miss. So yes, I've been very vocal about how I don't think Oklahoma's offense is very good. They're definitely better than Kentucky's offense. So even though I'm not a big fan of Oklahoma's offense and the offensive line is such a mess, Tennessee's defense just isn't very strong. I think Mateer can have himself a good game here. I think Oklahoma should be able to score points in this one. Now, on the other side of the ball, we have the marquee matchup here. Oklahoma's elite defense against Tennessee's explosive offense. And I mean, we're talking about 2 of the best units in college football. Oklahoma's defense 1st in success rate, 5th in PPA per play. Tennessee's offense 7th and 11th. And the thing with Oklahoma's defense, so if you remember what I was talking about last week when I picked Ole Miss, I was saying, hey, this defense is elite, but they haven't been tested. They haven't played any good offenses. And the pick was right. Ole Miss won the game outright. I got to say, Oklahoma's defense didn't play poorly in the game. 33.7% success rate, under 5 yards per play. So Oklahoma's defense actually played pretty well. I mean, Chambliss was making some throws, and they moved the ball a little bit, but Oklahoma's defense did hold its own there at home in Norman against Ole Miss. Now, what I was saying about Trinidad Chambliss last week, how he's great against the blitz, how he's great under pressure, same thing applies here for Joey Aguilar. Elite numbers against the blitz, elite numbers under pressure. So you could say the same things I was saying last week about Chambliss for Joey Aguilar here. The difference is we kind of saw this Tennessee offense sputter a little bit. Week 8 on the road in Tuscaloosa, he did not play very well. Tennessee's offense did not look very good in that game. And you might say, well, Kyle, that's in Tuscaloosa. That's Alabama. Yeah, it is. It's Alabama's defense. But strictly speaking, just the defense, Oklahoma's defense might be stronger than Alabama's defense. And this is Oklahoma's defense that's healthier, too. Their cornerback, Gentry, missed last week against Ole Miss. He's on track to return. And their linebacker, Kobe McKenzie, he left the Ole Miss game early. He's on track to play, too. So Oklahoma's defense might be better than Alabama's defense, and they're healthier than they were last week against Ole Miss, where they played better than the final score indicates. I can't believe I'm doing this. I actually bet this, too, because I'm such like, I don't want to say an Oklahoma hater, because I like Mateer. They're a cool team. I root for Venables. I've been a preacher of Oklahoma is overvalued all year, but at a full 3, this number should be Tennessee -1. You should not be able to get a full 3 here. So I bet this. Oklahoma +3. I bet the Sooners. Cincinnati, Utah. I'm running out of time here, so I'll rip through this one quickly. Utah got back on track in a major way, but there was a backup quarterback in. I don't think that's relevant now because it looks like Devin Dampier is going to play. I believe they removed him off the injury report. So it looks like Devin Dampier is going to play. This is a huge game against Cincinnati. College game day is here. Cincinnati Bearcats sitting at 5-0 in conference. Look at the matchup on this side of the ball. Cincinnati's offense, 5th in success rate, 6th in PPA per play. On the road at Rice-Eccles against Utah's defense, 13th in success rate, 11th in PPA per play. Tough loss here for Cincinnati. They're going to be missing their star running back, Evan Pryor, for this game, and that's one of their main guys. Now, they're a passing offense, but Evan Pryor is a huge part of it. So that's a big loss for Cincinnati, missing Evan Pryor in this game. The marquee matchup, in my opinion, on this side of the ball is right here. Utah's elite pass rush against Brendan Sorsby. Now, so far this year, Sorsby has been elite against the blitz. He's been elite under pressure. He's been elite when given a clean pocket. He's played essentially a perfect season. In fact, in the last 6 or 7 games, you could argue he's been the best quarterback in college football. So you might say, I don't care about the pass rush. Brendan Sorsby's playing at such a high level. And I can't necessarily disagree with that. Look at his numbers from the last 7 games, a 123.7 NFL pass rating. He's been one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Here's the thing. Look at the opponents. Bowling Green, Northwestern State, Kansas, not a good defense. Iowa State, very injured defense. UCF, not a great defense. Oklahoma State, terrible defense. Baylor, bad defense. So none of the teams that Sorsby has seen during this hot streak even come close to Utah's defense. So on one hand, it's how can you lay 10.5 points to this Cincinnati team that's just steamrolling everybody? On the other hand, Brendan Sorsby in this Cincinnati offense hasn't seen a defense even close to Utah. So interesting matchup on that side of the ball. Now, as far as run support, obviously Evan Pryor isn't playing in this game. Utah has been a little bit susceptible to the run, though. We saw Will Hammond running the ball. That's Texas Tech's backup quarterback. And Sorsby has been using his legs. So, who else did we see running the ball? Arizona State was running the ball in Utah. I believe, no, that was Jeff Sims' game. But Jeff Sims was using his legs in that one as well. BYU was running the ball on Utah. So Utah's run defense actually hasn't been all that elite. And Cincinnati, despite missing their star running back, they've been consistently running the ball. 51.5% success rate per rush. So maybe they're able to give Sorsby a little bit of run support here. It's going to be quite the matchup. Cincinnati's offense has been so explosive, and Utah's defense, especially at home, that's going to be a battle on that side of the ball. Now, on the other side of the ball, now that Devin Dampier is playing, it should be a pretty favorable matchup for Utah. Cincinnati's defense has been okay, not great. They are a little bit healthier, so Cincinnati's defense might be a little bit better than these numbers show, but Utah's offense with Dampier is pretty powerful. Regardless, I don't know how this one is double digits. Cincinnati looks like one of the strongest teams in the conference, and I really think Cincinnati's defense is capable of making Utah's offense work for points. Utah 118th in explosive play rate this year. Cincinnati's defense, it hasn't been elite, but they're 29th in explosive play rate allowed. I think they're able to keep Utah from breaking off big plays, make them sustain drives, and earn those points. Cincinnati's offense, maybe they're in for their toughest test ever. Well, not maybe, they definitely are. But this offense looks too good to be stifled. I'm on Cincinnati here at +7.5. I'm buying into what Satterfield is doing. Not 7.5, +10.5. I would make this game around 7.5 with a healthy Dampier. And that's another thing. How healthy is Dampier? Is he 100%? He's a guy that relies on mobility. Give me the Bearcats, +10.5. Thanks for watching. Ran out of time. Some games I didn't get to. Let me scroll through the list here. Georgia. Oh, I really wanted to take NC State. I know 5.5 is a short number. Georgia Tech's so strong, but it's such a sleepy spot for Georgia Tech. And CJ Bailey can put up points on Georgia Tech's defense. NC State's going to be able to score in that game. It's just Georgia Tech's going to hand the ball off. I'm not sure if NC State can make stops. I really, really want to get sneaky and play NC State there, but it just doesn't feel like a responsible decision. I like Oregon State to win outright against Washington State. Didn't bet that one, but we're talking about Saturday night in Corvallis. Washington State isn't good enough to be laying more than a field goal in that game. So I kind of lean towards Oregon State. Auburn, Kentucky, I don't know. I was considering under, but USC, Nebraska, I think is an over game. I know Nebraska, everyone sold their Nebraska stock, but USC on the road, they're going to score on Nebraska's defense because Nebraska's defense is terrible. But I think not Mateer, Raiola can have a good game throwing the ball in USC's defense, which isn't very good. So I lean towards USC minus the points. I think they put up a big number, but I think Nebraska can score back. So I think USC Nebraska over is worth the look. What else? I kind of want to take South Carolina too. Plus the 12.5. I feel like it's a perfect time to sell your Ole Miss stock after that upset win over Oklahoma. 12.5. I mean, South Carolina's got a pass rush. Ole Miss defense isn't very good. They can't defend the run. I think that's way too big of a number for Ole Miss. There was a big win against Oklahoma, but I think that was more Oklahoma not being very good rather than Ole Miss being elite. I think South Carolina can give them a game, so I didn't bet that one, though. I didn't bet South Carolina. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Let's have a great Saturday. Remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you all tomorrow.